Okay. Call to order, Town of Prescott Valley, regular town council meeting, June 22nd, 2023. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Leyva? Here. Councilmember Greer? Here. Councilmember Dickinson? Here. Councilmember Hepperly? Here. Councilmember Schumacher? Vice Mayor Hunt? Here. Mayor Pelguda?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. This time I'd like to welcome down for our invocation, Father John with St. Germain's Church.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank and praise you for this beautiful day. We ask your guidance, support, and wisdom as we begin this meeting. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
And at this time, I'll welcome Connor down to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is Staff Service Award for Scott Kelly, Deputy Utilities Director, 5 years. Come on down, Scott.
All right, so Scott Keith. Scott's been here 5 years now, and it's been a very fast 5 years, as I'm sure he can attest. But Scott is a key member of our team. And, you know, sometimes when you make a hire, you know, this is the person. You automatically know it. And I knew that with Scott, and if he wants to tell you why, he will. I'm not going to get into it, but you know, I knew he was the person for the job in spite of whatever his background was. And it turns out his background, his father-in-law and mother owned a water system down in Phoenix. So he's actually been doing this job since he was about 10 years old, in spite of all the child labor laws and such. So he was out digging trenches, reading meters and all that. And so he came to us with a ton of experience. He fits into our team well, just a really good guy, and I'm just so thankful to have him here. And I think I'll just let him say whatever he wants to say. So thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate that. Thank you for the opportunity. And just want to give a shout out to my lovely wife in the back there. You know, utility work is a 24/7, 365 thing. You know, we don't get to go home and just turn our phone off and ignore work. And 32 years ago, we were married. And on our first date, I had a neat little thing. I'm going to age myself here. It was a pager. And lo and behold, I got paged out to work. And she went with me. And I think since then, she's probably been on more emergency call outs than she wanted to be on, and knows more about water systems than she ever wanted to know. But thank you, honey. Been a great support and encouragement. Also wanted to give a shout out to our utilities department. Just they're great staff to work with. I really appreciate everything they do. And they really, I love my job. I love working here. And it really is because of the people. It's all the people I work with, all of you guys. So thank you for all that you do. And it really is a pleasure to work with you. And yeah, I think that's all I've got.
And again, I apologize for that. I said Scott Kelly, and I don't know why I had that on my brain, but it is Scott Keith. Moving on, item 4, call of the public. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters listed on the agenda or solely on matters within the jurisdiction of the town. Any persons wishing to address the council must register their name with the town clerk prior to the commencement of the meeting. The council's response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on future agendas. Such remarks shall be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by the mayor. Clerk?
Dan Ness.
Welcome, sir.
Council, Dan Ness, I live at 3025 North Pleasant View Drive, and I am in here in regards to the hotel. This is now our 5th meeting. We've had 2, meetings with the hotel group, 2 meetings with planning and zoning, and every one of them, our entire neighborhood is in objection to this for many reasons, and most of them very, very valid. All of them are valid. But since I only have 3 minutes, I did want to talk about the traffic impact statement. And mostly the fact that unless I'm reading it wrong, they used data from 2017 to tabulate, the engineering for this corner. I think we've grown substantially in that time. I would have to guess, we typically grow, 1,000 a year, give or take. And if any of you have had taken the time to go sit at that corner, drive that neighborhood, this doesn't make sense that you're going to try and put something that big with that many rooms in that location. And I don't care if they move it to the other lot or this lot, it is just way too big of impact for what should be there. Not to speak of the height and, 2 accesses onto a curve right next to, Glassford and the frontage. So if this was actually based on data from 2017, it's hugely inadequate. And I'd like you to make sure that that's the case, because we could be causing you a lot of problems, all of us. Must be getting close. So a lot of us want to still speak, but, in general, we have no sidewalks, no center line. It's a chip sealed street. Everybody walks on the road. We filed a little petition for what that was worth. And I got several comments of people that get hollered at now for walking through their neighborhood because they're on the street. Like it or not, no matter what you do, the traffic from that hotel is going to have to go through that neighborhood to get to any of the entertainment district, any of the restaurants. And so it's just ludicrous to think that they won't do that, because they have to, unless you take them all the way down to Kings Highway East or back out onto 69. I hope you really consider the ramifications of what this could cause.
Thank you, sir. Clerk?
Cindy Aubrey.
Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm also here to talk about the hotel. I live on 3076 North Pleasant View Drive. Safety issues, like he said, there's no sidewalks. If we get run down, the only place to go is in a ditch. Just recently, I was coming down from Hobby Lobby onto Kings Road. Those dump trucks are running stop signs. If this construction goes on, what if they're going to run down our stop signs? How are we going to protect ourselves, in the way? I have a bigger truck. I can't even pass another car unless I'm almost in a ditch, because my truck is pretty nice size. I'm not so much worried about all the traffic, it's the safety of it. We have older people. We have 2 sets of children in the neighborhood. They're not allowed to ride their bikes. They're not allowed to be in the front yard because the traffic has gotten so bad already. They're trying to avoid the Glassford on 69 because of the construction, so they're coming through our neighborhood. We have the motorhome or RV repair, they're speeding already through with these big old RVs. To add to more traffic onto our road, it needs to be upgraded. We need speed bumps, we need sidewalks. And to be honest, we're losing the view that is so gorgeous from a 4-story hotel, which I didn't even know was allowed to be in that area. I thought everything had to be single level. So please, let's not put this thing here. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Clerk?
Jerry Fulmer.
Jerry? Welcome, sir.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Fulmer. I moved here, it's about December of last year, so I'm not a long timer here. But my wife is originally born and raised here in Phoenix over 50 years ago. And what I've seen, if I'd have known what was gonna happen here, and just buying the house, I'd have gone and bought somewhere else. And it's sort of depressing. We've already put a lot of money into the house. And now I'm sitting right in a place where anybody looking out a window is gonna be looking right in my backyard. And so any kind of, I don't know, country style neighborhood, you got nothing but elderly people on the street. There's no way for them to get out of the way. And it's been said before, there's the traffic coming off onto Frontage Road is insane. That point right there, when you're coming around this way, just to try and make the turn, you gotta swing way out into the other lane almost to try and get back on your side. You got the church traffic, 2 churches. And I see what's gonna happen with all this other traffic coming out onto Pleasant View. It's gonna be insane. What happens when you got cars going this way and this way? You got people walking there. What are they gonna do, jump in the ditch? It's just some really poor planning. I don't know how they're gonna figure out how to exit, make an ingress and egress to solve any kind of problems there. Anyway, seems like with the city council, we were just talking to deaf ears. I think they already had their decision made before we even said anything. Anyway, appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Clerk?
Randall Erickson.
Can we turn the mic up, or do people need to get a little closer to the microphone? Let's try that out first, sir. Just get a little
Right.
closer.
Is that good?
How's that? Or if you just want to hold the microphone up closer to your mouth.
Okay, is that better?
That sounds like it's a lot
Okay,
better.
good. Okay, good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Randall Erickson. We live at 2967 North Pleasant View Drive. We moved there 37 years ago to raise a family in a small family town. We had other neighbors, but it was pretty spread out. Of the first 9 houses from Horizon going out Pleasant View, 3 others have been there longer than us, raising families. Now it's mixture of families, retired people, so they're having grandchildren come around. When I first got there, and we've been living there, I used to regard it as, or talk about it, as the Holy Land. There are churches on either side of Pleasant View, right by where we're talking about the change in the zoning in the hotel. And it was kind of the entrance to on Pleasant View to our homes. Since then, and it happened fairly quickly, Kohl's and Fry's centers went in. And the backs of those look like prisons. So, but we've gotten used to it. Then Kids Am went in, which looks like it belongs in Disneyland, not in my neighborhood. Then the Hampton Inn went in, and it looks down on all of us. So it's a little unnerving. Fortunately, it is several hundred feet away. So gotten used to it. But still, it looks down on our house, back in our backyards. So it's a little intrusive. So half of the hotels, or quite a few of the hotels that we already have, 3 of them are 2 stories that are right on Highway 69 in the Central District. And then Hampton Inn is there. Now 2 other hotels that are going to be 4 stories are approved that are going in the Central Corridor. That's a lot of additional hotel right now in the last month. We don't need this 3rd one in a huge megalith like this right on our neighborhood, right on our families' homes. So I think it's a very bad place for it to go. There's something about it being said that the 2 hotels, the Hampton and this one, would add some symmetry to now, it used to be Robert Road, but now for Glassford Hill Road to be the entrance to the town. Well, this isn't Las Vegas Boulevard, and it's not St. Louis where we have a big archway coming into the town. It's a small family town. And this hotel they're talking about isn't even on Glassford Hill Road. So it's out of line as far as I'm concerned. And I find it interesting that the second hotel, well, this one, and the one over by Fry's, Homewood Suites, is part of Hilton somehow. 25% of Hilton is owned by H&A Group.
I'm gonna have to start winding it up a little bit, sir.
Okay.
That's all.
Well, I'll wind it up with that what enables me to get up here and speak, and for all of you to be up here representing the town, is that the government is by the people, of the people, and for the people. So please preserve our Lynx Lake estates and our families' homes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Clerk?
Robert Gallion.
Welcome, sir.
No disrespect, but I've got to read off of this paper.
No disrespect taken, sir.
One of the biggest human frailties, in my opinion, and I'll give you the definition, is conscience. Internal knowledge or judgment of right and wrong in the moral sense. On one hand, are you going to please the property owner in question, or the landowner of the property we're discussing, the architect and his associates, the people yet to arrive in Prescott Valley? Are you trying to grow this town to ? To what end? And another hotel that could eventually become an apartment building. On the other hand, the people in the neighborhood whom you are considering being able to look out their windows at a 4-story building, streets not meant for the kind of traffic that's going to develop, and less value of our property, and emphasis on loss of our property value. That's a fact. Why can't there be 2 small medical centers on the property? Something's got to be there. We all know that. We all agree. Something's going to be built there. Why can't it be something more palatable for the neighborhood? In summation, let your conscience be your guide if you choose to listen to it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Clerk?
Mark McIntyre.
Welcome, sir.
Hello, I'm Mark McIntyre. I live over on 2968 Lynx Lake Drive.
It's going to be right at the edge of the 1,000-foot range of the hotel. And your diversion of a left only off of Pleasant onto the frontage only directs them right down Lynx Lake Drive, right past my house that already has, not due to the city's fault, a high sustained traffic of FedEx, of the Prime and all the other delivery services brought about by COVID. But Fry's food delivery trucks come, Shamrock Delivery for Jen's Restaurant comes up and down my street, Affinity RV Sales and all their customers for the RV dump come up and down my street all weekend, all week. I had to go up and remind the business owner of Mile High Four-Wheel Drive that his RV rentals did not, or the UTV rentals did not need to be doing 50 miles an hour down my street. Don't crap on your own doorstep, buddy. And this is only going to exacerbate the problem that we already have. And in the end, as Randall said, it's you people are serving us. And who asked us, do we want a tourist town? Do we want this to be a nationwide destination for mountain biking in a 3,500 acre park with 3-acre lakes and fishing? No, we don't want that. That's not what we moved here for. I am passionate about Prescott Valley. It's a wonderful hub. It's a wonderful bedroom community. Leave it like that. It's a bedroom community. We don't want industry. We don't want manufacturing and high volume business stuff attracting the nation here. It's coming already. We've got neighbors from New York, from Pennsylvania, Ohio. We've got enough problems already. Don't invite 2,000, 3,000 temporary tourists to come suck on our limited grocery supplies. I'm suffering right now with a pinched nerve in my neck. I can't get an MRI for 5 weeks due to the overloaded medical system. So have some heart for the people in this town, the people. I've lived here 34 years. I've helped out in the community. I've been a scout leader for 32 years. I've helped build the citizenry of this town, and that's not what we want. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Clerk?
Tim Reynolds.
Who's next after this one, clerk?
No one after
Okay.
Mr. Reynolds.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening. I may be a little premature. I actually wanted to talk about the condos.
You can talk about, if you'd like to talk about that now, you can.
Oh, the condos are, okay.
Fine.
So I understand the condo proposition, which was denied by P&Z Zoning Commission a couple of weeks ago, was on the board today. So I was here for P&Z. When P&Z members started asking some very tough, pointed questions at the developer about why do you want to do this here and now? Very expensive, $2,200 to $2,800 rental properties, packed like sardines. Their biggest comment was, if not us, it's zoned as mobile homes. Like mobile home parks are horrible. Now, I live in Prescott Valley, and I know there are areas in Prescott Valley where mobile home parks are less than desirable to look at. But I also know there's a lot, if properly developed and maintained, are very nice and look very good. What's the point? I have a special needs daughter and a special needs son-in-law, both independent, both work full-time, $15 an hour. That is going to be their earning limit, 16, 17 as it goes up. That's it. That's where they're at. They're doing the right thing. They're working really hard. They're saving their money so that they can buy something. Right now, they spend over $1,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. I've been online looking. There ain't nothing affordable in Prescott Valley, except at the low end or at the high end of their value, mobile homes starting at $250,000 and go up to $280,000 that look really nice, very presentable, and everything like that. Why can't we as a community not just focus on high-end, unreachable, unattainable goals when we have property there zoned, someone thought about it, zoned for mobile homes, put the word out on the street. We'd like something like that, affordable to go in, so that the young, hardworking couples of the Prescott Valley can actually do something I do, own a house. It may not be a brick and mortar house, may be just mobile home, but it's something to generate wealth for when they get old and retire. They have something that they can lean on to get them through their older years, as I'm sure most of you do as well. So please, I just ask, look at that. It does not have to be here and now for a high-end California packed condominium on a hillside. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Clerk, confirming we're no other speakers?
No other speakers, Mayor.
I'm sorry?
No other speakers.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on, item 5, council communications. We'll start on the end. Councilwoman?
Boom.
Councilwoman Dickinson?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. I don't know whether it's appropriate or not for me to mention, but we need to keep our Councilwoman Schumacher and her husband in our prayers this evening. He went into surgery this afternoon, and we pray that he will come out successfully for a collapsed lung. So something happened to me this week, and probably you have noticed it as well, due to theft at Walmart. I went into the sundries department, and I had to get in line for items that were locked up. And they had to go, the clerk that was helping us out had to go to a secluded area and some part of the deep part of the store, get a key, come out and help one person in front of me to get cologne. And they had to lock it up. Then they left, and then they assisted another person with another item, and then they finally got to me. But it was a good half hour, maybe longer, that I was standing there, and I got to know a few neighbors as a result of it, but that's not the point. We have, this is becoming a reality in our community. And I, noticed it on TV, the big cities have it. And it's something that we are just, another thing that we're having to deal with is theft and shoplifting at our stores now. And I don't know that there is an immediate answer to it, but I just, it kind of concerned me, and I just wanted to bring it up this evening. We're just going to have patience in this area as our businesses deal with this. I did want to congratulate an organization here in town called LASER. It's the Large Animal Shelters Emergency and Rescue Center. They were awarded a $5,000 grant from the Arizona Community Foundation through the 2023 Pat and Gerhard Kroner Animal Welfare Fund. These funds will purchase more small animal pens for, they have 2 shelters, one in Chino Valley and one here in Prescott Valley over by the warehouse, for supplies needed for poultry, for those that we voted to have more chickens, and small animals at both the county large animal shelter site in Prescott Valley and at the Chino Valley Equestrian Park. And this organization works with the county emergency readiness organization, and so I wanted to congratulate them for getting this award. And also wanted to mention that the Kiwanis Club will be having a barbecue this Saturday at Bob Edwards Park from 3 to 7 p.m. And for those who have nothing to do on their Saturday afternoon and would like a free meal, come on out to the Kiwanis Club picnic. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Welcome, everybody. I have two things. One is, please join us on June 27th at 1 p.m. at Antelope Park. We will be doing a dedication to a Sergeant Rick Lopez Memorial. And that is at Antelope Park. The address is 8075 East Powers Avenue, and it's by Coyote Springs Elementary School. Again, it's June 27th at 1 p.m. Sergeant Lopez's life was taken on June 28th, a year ago, when he was murdered. And we are going to be dedicating part of the splash pad area to Sergeant Lopez on June 27th at 1 p.m. So please join us at Antelope Park. Also, please come to Red, White, and Boom. There will be a beverage area by the stage that is going to be selling adult beverages and other beverages, and all proceeds go to Friends of Prescott Valley Parks and Recreation. So 100% of the proceeds go to your parks and recreation. And so please stop by and buy a beverage at Red, White, and Boom.
Councilwoman Hepperly? Leyva?
Thank you. I just have a quick announcement. Yesterday, as part of the Prescott Valley Chamber of Commerce, we launched our first Hispanic business mixer, and it was a success. It was a great response from the business, the Hispanic business community. We had about 30 businesses that joined us yesterday, and this is going to be a great platform for our community, not only for the business community, but as well as the Hispanic and in our entire community. So we were very excited to launch this as part of the Prescott Valley Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, ma'am. Before we move on to managers' comments, how's the weather out there? Is it temperature okay in the room? Do we need to turn the air conditioner off? Are we okay, or it's comfortable? Yes? Okay, good. Mr. Davidson?
No report. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are considered routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately for discussion and possible action. Council, we've all had a chance to review our packet. If there's an item that needs to be removed, please make note now. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to recognize 2 items on the consent calendar, if I may. One of them is the reappointment of Linda Letzer to the Library Board of Trustees, and also the reappointment of Carrie Ingerson to the Parks and Recreation Commission. So we are very excited that both of these women are being reappointed to our commissions.
Thank you, ma'am. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve all items listed under the consent agenda by electronic vote.
A second.
Clerk, please call the vote.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 8, old business, amendment to Chapter 8 business license. Clerk?
Ordinance number 2023-923, an ordinance of the mayor and common council of the town of Prescott Valley, a municipal corporation of Arizona, amending Article 8-02, business license in Chapter 8, business of the town code to streamline the business license application process by removing automatic building inspections as a part of that process, providing that all other chapters, articles, and sections of the town code not herein repealed or amended shall remain in full force and effect, providing that if any provision in this ordinance is held invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, the remaining provisions shall not be affected, but shall continue in full force and effect, and providing that this ordinance shall be effective 30 days after its passage and approval according to law.
Thank you, ma'am. Shall this ordinance pass?
Mayor, I move to amendments of
Point.
Chapter 8.
Councilwoman, hold on. We just need a vote on this, that's all.
Councilmember Greer, how do you vote? That passes unanimously, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to item 9. Considering we have a large group of individuals here, I respect everyone's time. And instead of going from 9A down to 9F, I believe a lot of the folks in the audience are here for 9F, 9E, and 9D. So we're going to go from the bottom up, if that's okay with everyone. So starting with item 9F, Homewood Suites by Hilton, ZMC 23-002, consideration and possible action. And this is a public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Item before you is a zone map change as well as a preliminary development plan. The zone map change is for a particular parcel that fronts on Horizon and Pineview Drive. As you can see from the overhead, it is the 1 acre parcel, again, at Pineview and Horizon Drive. It's being requested that that be changed from its present zoning of RS pad, a residential and services planned area development, to the C2-3 pad, a commercial general sales and service planned area development on that approximately 1 acre parcel. The purpose is to develop a 4-story hotel. The subject parcel, lot 169, is in Lynx Lake Estates, part of the original incorporated boundary of Prescott Valley in 1978. The zoning district of R1L18 was established at the time of incorporation, and in 2004, that land use changed for designation from low-density residential to community commercial. Surrounding uses for this particular property include a pediatric dental office to the south, a church to the west, and a residential neighborhood to the north. Homewood Suites is proposed to develop a 90-unit hotel at this site with some amenities that would include a spa, outdoor patio, barbecues, outdoor pickleball court, and a fitness court as some of the amenities. The parking lot would be located on the southernmost lot, as you can see here, adjacent to the pediatric dental center. That is where the proposed parking lot is. The other lot, as you can see, that fronts basically on Pineview and the remnant of Glassford Hill there, would be the location of the 4-story hotel and the parking lot on the southern parcel there. There would be several entrances to the property, as you can see from the site plan. There's actually 2 on the frontage road that leads to Glassford Hill. There's a third proposed entrance as a left turn lane only with curbing to prevent vehicles from transacting north on Pleasant View. And there's a 4th entrance, which is along Horizon Ridge, which is a crash gate, emergency access only. So there you have kind of the layout of the site. A traffic impact statement has been done for the project. We require a traffic impact statement for preliminary development plans and a full-blown traffic impact analysis for the final development plan as it moves forward to council, if it moves forward to council. We requested the applicant to hold a second neighborhood meeting after the first neighborhood meeting, and that was actually held on September 20th of 2022, the first neighborhood meeting. As a result of that meeting and as a result of some of the concerns that were raised then, particularly traffic, that was a concern that the applicant actually moved towards a left turn out only onto Pleasant View to alleviate some of that traffic that would run up through the neighborhood. In addition, the proponents, or some of the opponents of the project were opposed to the bulk and the scale of the project. It being very similar to what's across the street on Glassford Hill, the Hampton Inn, as we know, but it is similar in size at 4 stories. It is 90 rooms. I believe the Hampton Inn is a little more than that. But anyway, the bulk and scale of the project would be similar to the Hampton Inn across the street. And I think that was referenced today as someone from the audience. One thing to note is the way the project is set up with the 2 lots, they actually could be reversed. The hotel could go on the southern parcel and the parking lot could go on the northern parcel. That would be an allowed by right use in this district and would allow the applicant to move forward to the council directly with a final development plan, not having to do the zoning map change, not having to do the other things that are associated with that. So just a note to point out there, the Prescott Valley Planning Zoning Commission held their first formal public hearing on this project, Zone Map Change 2302, at its regular meeting on May the 8th, 2023. In the face of considerable public comment, the commission voted to table the matter and to send it back to the applicant for a second neighborhood hearing, which was held, and some of the traffic concerns were noted. That's why the applicant decided to go with a left turn out only onto Pleasant View, along with curbing, which would restrict that movement. The commission actually voted to recommend approval to the town council of Zone Map Change 23-002, subject to conditions that were imposed. And that it found that the request was consistent with the general plan 2035. And in the process, the commission also approved the related preliminary development plan 23-002 for the project to move it along to council. After holding its own public hearing, the town council is being asked to consider whether to follow the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission of approval for the zone map change as conditioned. There are several conditions that are listed in terms of what can be allowed on that pad if the council were to approve it, the C2 pad. Right now, it's any use in the C2 district. That could be further limited by the council upon their conditioning of the project to be a hotel only, never to be used as a long-term stay, apartments or anything of that nature. And I would put that out to the council to look at that. Now, if the council determines to follow the P&Z recommendations, it would vote to first read the ordinance 2023-925 by title only on 2 separate occasions, and then place on the same on for final passage. After the first reading at this meeting, a second reading would occur at the town council meeting scheduled for June 29th, 2023, and a vote would be held on whether to approve ZMC 23-002 as recommended. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. I thought the applicant might be in the audience, but I do not see him here today, so I'd be glad to field any questions you might have.
We're going to take a break from you for a minute, Mr. Ruby, and this is a public hearing. So is there anyone out in the audience who would like to comment on this item that hasn't already been said? Just don't come up and just say the same thing, but you are more than welcome to come up. We'll start off ladies first. And audience members, if you would, if the person in front of you touches on the same topics that you were going to touch on, let's just not reiterate that. We'll understand that as a council that is a concern.
So he said that they were just gonna do where it only left. That's not really gonna work. What I'm also concerned about is according to that map, the way CAZ Fire says that you have to have a certain distance from the building if the building's on fire. There's no way that building or that parking lot is big enough for those regulations. And according to the CAZ person I talked to, they hadn't even looked at the plans yet. So how are we for sure that that's enough room for the fire department to even come in? Because, I mean, there's a whole bunch there, but, how can we also be for sure that the safety for fire is not is more available? And I know we only have one fire department, and it's not, it's close, but it's not that close. You see what I'm saying? So, but if you do pass this, how about we make the hotel pay for the speed bumps in the sidewalks, since it won't come out of our taxes? That might work to make us safe. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
I just want to say that something can go there. Something's going to go there. It's been empty ever since I've lived there. Every place else is filled in. There's still a lot of vacant lots, big ones along the highway even. So this needs to be something transitional, just like the RS code reads, that goes from businesses to a residential area. There's no question, this is residential. And if you had a different look than that picture from over there looking, you would see a massive amount of homes that have been there, all families, just like all of you, and all of you having kids. Would you want a 4-story hotel like the Hampton Inn size, bigger than this building, over top of you? I doubt it. I emailed all of you today or yesterday to drive around our area. Well, you're not going to be able to now. Hopefully, maybe you did. If you were to come off of 69, go on Glassford, and take that turn that might not have been there when they did this traffic report. It might have still been an intersection. It can be pretty hairy. And then you go around at 15 miles an hour, supposedly, and turn down Pleasant View. And if you're there kind of enough time, you would see a horrendous amount of traffic. It's not steady, but some cars are going like 50 miles an hour. We used to play football out in the street with the kids. Now you can't. It's more like cleaning up the road runners that we used to have, the rabbits that were around. So something, 1 or 2 stories would be great there. Something that will help the community. This is a crushing action. So hopefully, oh yes, we also did a petition. We weren't notified about this meeting on the agenda on the website until almost 5 o'clock Monday. I had heard that it was going to maybe be in. There was a notice kind of that it was tentative for this day quite some time ago, but we anticipated it coming out, and there was only a couple of us. Unfortunately, most people are quiet, bashful, and don't take a lot of action or aren't that active. So a few of us were on it, and I made up a petition, and another guy went around the neighborhood and turned it in before 5 o'clock yesterday to the town clerk, and hopefully you guys got that too. So it shows a fair amount of people. That's just people on the first 4 streets between Horizon and Sunset. Just Pine View, Pleasant View, and Lynx Lake Drive. So, you wouldn't believe it if you drove around that whole area. And if you drove by Jen's Cafe in the morning up till 2 o'clock, there's people all over the street on both sides. It's a family, people area. We need to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello again. What I would like is a little clarification, because we're being told that if this isn't approved with the zoning change that they did with the residential services, that it could go to the other lot, which I had as a C2, which has height restrictions. This is 48 feet at 4 stories or something to that effect. And it seems to me C2 without being changed to C23 pad, which hasn't been done to the best of my knowledge, this would only be a 3-story hotel. So that would kind of be, it's real confusing, kind of technical stuff, but I would, like to have that answered.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to bring up a couple points, and that is the frontage road onto Glassford Hill Road. Almost every time that I'm at that intersection making a right-hand legal turn, I have seen people go straight across the intersection and make a left-hand turn. The other point I want to bring up is the coffee kiosk. I have driven and making the right-hand turn from Glassford Hill onto the frontage road, and the traffic is backed up. People are in the road waiting to turn into the coffee kiosk. That is the main entrance for this hotel. It's just not right for that spot. The other thing is that the architect is generous in making the left-hand turn. People aren't going to do that. You want to go to the event center, your phone is going to say, make a right turn on the Pleasant View Drive. That's the simplest way to get there. It's just the wrong usage of property here. Besides the things that I brought up earlier, it's just wrong for that space. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Other thing I am in that unit is the crazy guy in the lime shirt that rides a bike, rain, snow, sleet, and hail. I ride 1,000 miles in Lynx Lake Estates a year. And there are certain areas, and the frontage road from Glassford to in front of this Patio Doors place is one place I know I could easily get killed. The other place is in Jen's Cafe. The traffic, as has been stated, is awful there. My poor wife, who's getting aged, has severe rheumatoid arthritis, enjoys walking a little dog. I've had to restrict her from crossing Sunset now because the traffic there is so horrendous. And with the advent of this hotel and the additional traffic, you would take away her only recreation, her only ability to get outside of myself, taking her someplace else. And that's a horrid thing, to have an invasion of your neighborhood, and as has been said, something that doesn't belong there. It's horrific to think that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Ruby, welcome you back. You'd like to answer some of those questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of fire safety, the project has been reviewed and commented upon by CAFMA. They stated it meets all the requirements for their fire safety needs. The other thing was I'd like to point out was the landscaping for the project. I apologize I didn't get to that particular slide. This slide actually shows the two parcels. The one to the north is a zone map change parcel. The other is where the parking lot is proposed. And you can see as it looks into downtown Prescott Valley. This is actually the landscaping slide. The applicant has agreed to take that portion of property, vacant parcel, vacant property basically along Glassford Hill, which is a no man's land today. There's an easement, a gas easement that crosses that right now, which is not utilized for anything. The applicant has agreed to landscape that entire area, make it into a park-like setting to promote pedestrian access going north towards IHOP and that part of Glassford Hill Road. So that's one of the things. The other is the height restrictions. Absolutely right. There is a 35-foot height restriction in any district in Prescott Valley. The PAD designation, the planned area development, is specifically in our code to allow for deviations to setbacks, things like height and things of that nature when a project comes in, and that's why it's being done as a C2-3 planned area development for that flexibility for the developer to do those types of things. In terms of traffic on the roads, in close proximity, there are some traffic issues. There's speeding on every road, I think, in town. These are no different. There are things that are put in place to restrict traffic movements. One of them is the diamond on Glassford Hill Road onto Pavway. That is not a thoroughfare through there. Some people do avoid that diamond or go around that diamond to get to Pavway. And I'm sure that we're going to see some people, if approved by the council, we're going to see some people violating that left turn only lane there, even though it's going to be curbed up to 2 foot to not allow traffic to go through there. There's only so much that can be done in terms of people obeying the law and doing the things that should be done. If there's any other questions from council, I'd be glad to respond at this time.
I'm going to close the public hearing at this point and then have council make comments or questions for Mr. Ruby. Vice Mayor?
Yes. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here. And Robert, we did get your petition. So thank you very much for doing this. I think I counted about 33 names on there. So thank you. We also received a note from the Facets and then also from Mr. Erickson. So thank you for those. We did get those. Mr. Ruby, I want to make sure that this map is part of the approval. Can we make sure that that's in the conditions, this landscape map?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that on there, Ivan?
It can be attached to the ordinance if you desire to
Okay.
do that.
So where do I add that to number 1, or how do I do that?
You would just simply indicate that it's something that you're adding as a condition or as an attachment.
So I can make that part of my motion?
Yes.
Okay, landscape plan. Also, I'm sorry that the applicant's not here. Can you go back to the elevation? Because during the planning and zoning meeting, he talked about the tail. Do you know anything about that when he was talking about that and the elevations? No?
I'm sorry, I don't, ma'am.
And about how he didn't have windows on the one side of the building.
I think I may be able to speak to that, Vice Mayor. On the frontage along Horizon, the applicant had restricted any windows on that side, so as to protect some of the privacy of the people in that neighborhood.
Mhm.
So that might be,
And then
what
can
you-
you go back to the map we just had? Sorry about that.
I'm sorry, ma'am, can you repeat?
Back to the map we just had up. I should have asked my question and I didn't. So somebody brought up a question about aligning these driveways here with the coffee cart driveway. And so I don't know if it would be better to combine these driveways and align it with this one driveway here.
That would probably be an issue for the Public Works Director. I know there had been some comment about signage on the frontage road about turning in, turning out, and I believe we could do a warrant for that.
Make a note on that too, Ivan, for that to be looked at as part of the final. Those two driveways to be looked at potentially being combined and aligned with the coffee cart.
As another condition?
Yeah, because it just, I don't know. That'd be
Vice
up to-
Mayor, just a point of clarification, with the same widths of driveway, keeping the two, I believe they're 28-foot driveways on each side, combining them into one driveway, is that
Right,
okay?
right, and aligning it with the driveway across the way to try
Okay.
to help with the. And then, those are the only questions I have. I would like to finish up.
Councilwoman?
Rudy, the picture that you showed with the hotel and the landscaping, it looks like a photograph. I think it was yes, this one.
That one?
Yeah, this one here. Thank you. So at the planning and zoning meeting, it seems to me they, along with doing the landscaping on that easement area that goes in front of the hotel to Glassford Hill, that this sidewalk they were going to put a sidewalk that would go down and make it easy to get to IHOP as well. Were they going to do that? It seemed
Yes,
there was a
ma'am. Uh,
discussion about here.
It doesn't necessarily show on this landscape plan, but it is proposed to run the sidewalk, pedestrian access sidewalk north along that service drive entrance behind IHOP. And that would provide a pedestrian access all the way down from the Fry's area, IHOP, and then on down to this project.
So this would benefit the residents as well.
I believe so, ma'am.
Thank you.
Councilman, did you have something? Okay. Councilman Hepperly?
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. Can I just, like, broadly address their concerns? Okay, all right. So we hear you guys regarding the neighborhood, and it's a tough situation because you're right, your neighborhood has been there for 40 years. And when it started, there was no way to know that Glassford Hill Road was going to become the artery of the town. And so from one side of the map, this looks like a perfect location for a hotel. And then you hop on over to the other side of the wall and it's like, oh, wow, there's a neighborhood here. And it's tough. It was tough when Walmart went in and Fry's went in and Kidzam went in because this is, that's where the town is. And so we're not, we are very sympathetic to what you're saying and we understand and it is a difficult situation because this is like, it is like Mr. Ruby pointed out, it is balanced to Glassford Hill Road and what is existing there currently. But do we know how much sidewalk is actually getting added? Because it looks like quite a bit along the frontage road and then Glassford or.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council Member, I don't have the exact linear footage of the sidewalk that's being added, but it's a minimum of 5-foot ADA compliant sidewalk that would run. I don't have the exact linear footage, but it would be along the entire frontage and all the way up to where the service access.
It's adding a lot of sidewalk where there is not currently sidewalk. And that every street in Prescott Valley that doesn't have sidewalks right now should have sidewalks. The issues that you're saying, I see on Robert Road. I mean, Robert Road is still the secondary mode of north-south access in Prescott Valley, and I see kids trying to wait for the bus along there. And, they're half in the ditch. And it sucks. Like, it's not how it should be, but we can only fix one thing at a time. And Gilbert's doing his best. So, just understand that we are sympathetic to the situation. And if we could snap our fingers and just make sidewalks everywhere, we definitely would. So, thank you.
Councilwoman, did you have something? Again, I would like to reiterate, just thanks for coming out, because for every person that comes out here, we've had people also comment good things as well. And we understand, it takes a lot. Everyone loves Prescott Valley. Everyone loves where they live. You guys are very passionate about where you live. And that's what makes Prescott Valley so amazing. So it is a tough decision when it comes to figuring out what's best for our entire community. So again, I sincerely want to let you know that I thank you all for coming out. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. And thank you, Councilwoman Hepperly. We just can't stop development. We can't stop, and I didn't mean to say development. And tourism seems to be our focus on bringing in more sales tax, and sales tax is how we build more sidewalks, believe it or not, and bring in more revenue to do things in town. So thank you for saying what you said. So I'm going to try to work on conditions, if that's okay, Ivan.
Go ahead.
I guess I'd like to add, and I heard this at Planning and Zoning, I'd like to add a number 3. We have 2 so far. I'd like to add a number 3 that would say something like, the uses on the described property shall be limited to that of a hotel, and the hotel may not subsequently be converted to an extended stay housing facility, apartment building, or related use otherwise permitted in Town Code Article 13-14, C2 Commercial General Sales and Services. So it can't become an apartment. I know that, I heard that at Planning and Zoning. So that would stop that. And then I guess number 4 would be something to the effect of a traffic analysis with a particular focus on frontage road, but I'm okay if we look at Horizon and the whole area. If you determine that's necessary, if Heather determines that's necessary as part of the final plan. But I particularly want to look at combining those 2 driveways if she thinks that's necessary and aligning it with the coffee cart driveway. And then somewhere it says Exhibit A, and I don't know if Exhibit A is the site plan, and if it is the site plan, I would like it to also include the landscape plan.
Exhibit A is actually the description of the property being rezoned. So you're proposing then that the landscape plan be Exhibit B.
B, right. So if we could add Exhibit A and B to Section 1 of the ordinance. So I would add Condition 3 and Condition 4. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I would like to offer a motion. That would be a motion to read ordinance number 2023-925, subject to the amendments by title only on 2 separate occasions, then place the same on final passage by electronic vote.
Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Clerk, please call the vote. Thank you, ma'am. Clerk?
Ordinance number 2023-925, an ordinance of the mayor and common council of the town of Prescott Valley, a municipal corporation of Arizona, amending the town zoning map ZMC 23-002 by changing the zoning classification of a 1-acre parcel, APN 103-026-067, otherwise known as Homewood Suites by Hilton, from RS PAD, Residential and Services Planned Area Development Zoning, to C2 PAD, Commercial General Sales and Services Planned Area Development Zoning, and providing that this ordinance shall be effective 30 days after its passage and approval according to law.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we're going to jump up to item 9D as in David, the Villas, ZMC 23-001, consideration and possible action. This is a public hearing. Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and fellow council members. Before you this evening is a consideration to approve 2 separate items, which will be presented concurrently and will require 2 separate motions. The primary request is for your support of a zoning map change, ZMC 23-001, an application submitted April 2023 by Marcela Mora Yatko, an authorized agent for the owner. This request is to rezone an existing parcel designated R1MH, residential mobile manufactured homes, and the adjacent parcel currently classified as C2 Commercial General Sales Planned Area Development, or PAD, on approximately 33 acres, and is to become RS Residential and Services PAD. The proposed site of construction is generally located on Glassford Hill within the Glassford Regional Marketplace on the northeast corner of Market Street and North Great Western Drive, roughly a quarter-mile north of State Route 69 and the Crossroads Shopping Center. The property fronts Market Street, a public dedicated roadway, as well as the future Jasper Parkway on the eastern border of the parcel. Here you can see vicinity of where that is located on the screen. A little history on the area. The area was annexed to the town in November of 1990, And in 1999, approximately 82 acres, including the subject site, was rezoned from RCU 70 to C2 pad. And in 2000, a final development plan was approved by the Glassford Regional Marketplace that you see here. This made way for the approval of a rezone of a portion of the RS pad that allowed for construction of sorry, that was a mistake. That you can see here, it is designated community commercial. So you can see the surrounding areas here, including a car dealership, hotel, sports facility, and construction is currently underway for the bungalows rental community with more additional development likely to occur on the southeast of the proposed community. So here you can see what the existing zoning classifications are. Currently, it is R1MH, as was stated. The zoning designation on that western parcel would allow up to 90 manufactured dwelling units by the matter of right. And the C2 zoning would allow for residential units, or would not allow for residential units. And therefore, the request to rezone to RS pad would bring the area in conformance with the recently adopted 2035 general plan. Again, this is just showing you what the current classifications are and what these surrounding uses are. And this is the proposed use. The rezoning does conform again with the town's general plan. It is supported as part of the regional marketplace specific area and is also mentioned in the town's central business district in the general plan. The majority of the property of the north of the parcel is state trust land, which is managed by the Arizona State Land Department and is also classified as suitable for conservation purposes under the Arizona Preservation Initiative. Additionally, the town has recently completed a long-awaited trail known as the Summit Trail, which climbs nearby state trust lands up to the summit of Glassford Hill. Oop, I'm going to come back to this. Again, the rezoning is accompanied by this preliminary development plan you see here. It is ever evolving. You do have with you today, we did have some updates this afternoon, so we provided that for you. It does indicate a general vision of the building locations along with parking and access configurations. This latest development plan that you have paper copy of is represented as a gated for-rent community held in common ownership, offering a variety of shared amenities. Some of those include various pocket parks along the west side of the property, a pool, dog park, playground, clubhouse, and soft trail pathways. And the applicant has also agreed to install and maintain a soft trail along the western and eastern borders of the property that is leading to a town-owned parcel on the upper northwestern corner that you see on your screen. Based on the new information we received this afternoon, we are asking the council to consider the conditional approval of ZMC zoning map change 23-001 to allow the applicant to move forward with their proposal to perfect their final development plan to meet the town's development standards and to construct up to 360 total condo-like dwelling units with an attached car garage and a gross density of 11.45 dwelling units per acre. Again, this is up to 360 units on 33 acres. You can see the main access roads will be off of Market Street and also off the future Jasper Parkway. It has been stipulated in your packets that this roadway will be completed prior to final occupancy. Fire Department has provided their approval of the latest preliminary development plan and it shall be reflected in the final plans that you will see later if this gets a motion to move forward. The applicant has provided a transit impact analysis, which both their transit engineer and our town's engineer team are continuing to work on perfecting that prior to bringing you the final development plan. And this is to provide more specific recommendations that will improve the level of service in this area. The landscaping meets the expected 10% interior landscape requirements. And again, in a collaborative effort with the applicant and town staff, the site shows proposed pedestrian gravel trails from Market leading up towards the northwest portion. I'm going to skip to this slide here. Oops. So you can see the red circle shows its proximity to the trails and the future parkway. A neighborhood meeting was held on March 2nd, 2023, and all property owners within 1,000 feet were invited via first-class mail. 4 members of the public were present with no negative comments. This was mentioned earlier. This is part of our general plan. So it is in compliance with the general plan or the rezone. And you can see here there's a model concept design that is subject to be altered to accommodate the standard development standards in our code. And an example of that would be to include a 50 square foot storage in addition to what they already have as a parking garage, which we would like to have them continue to use that for parking. These items were heard on 2 occasions by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the applicant is here today to appeal that decision that was denied on June 12th, which is why we are presenting them concurrently today. With that said, the request, we do request that the council consider that the ZMC request is appropriate as conditioned and stipulated in your packets. Staff does support this request and also recommends your support to motion in favor of the latest preliminary development plan, subject to the stipulations listed in your packet and outlined and additional changes that you may deem appropriate. The applicant has a presentation they would like to present to you and are available. Their entire team is here for any questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the public on this item? That being said, the applicant, you're more than welcome to come up.
Thank you. She's going to put it up right now.
Oh, thank you. And then
just use it, or
this one?
this one to go to
Okay,
the next
that
slide.
one goes back.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everybody. And thank you so much for having us in tonight and for spending time on our project and our proposal. My name is Mary Grace McNear. I'm with the law firm Buse Gilbert McGroder, and I have with me a whole team of the applicant. Right here is John Boniface. He's with the Prescott Valley Holdings, LLC. They are the owner of the property that we're talking about rezoning today. Also in the audience, I have Greg Shaner. He's our lead engineer from Matrix Design Services. Also from Matrix, we have Scott Barnhart, who is our traffic engineer. And also from Prescott Valley Holdings, we have Larry Wandell here with us. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we have our planner from Buse Gilbert McGroder, Marcella Mora Yatko, who makes the trains run on time for me. So we're very happy to be here with you tonight. My first slide, I have violated every rule of presentation with these first 2 slides, but you'll be happy to know I'm not going to read all of that to you. That slide is very dense, has a lot of information on it. But what I want to say about it is that this is kind of an illustration of how we got here. This is my first slide, and I'm trying to tell you that we had 4 submissions that included major changes to our site plan. We had 6 meetings with town staff, which were very productive, and we thank them. Thank you, Ernest. Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you, Ivan, for being so available to us, and Jess as well, and for helping us make this a better site plan. So we had 6 meetings with town staff, and we had 2 Planning and Zoning Commission meetings where we felt we got really good feedback. And what I really would like you to notice about this slide is starting in May 2nd and then again on May 15th, look at the changes we've made and incorporated to our site plan. So what I want to tell you is we heard you. We're listening, And we listened to the town as well. We had some public comment at the last two public Planning and Zoning Commissions meetings, and we made some changes to this plan. So staff has been helpful. City Manager's Office has been very helpful. And we hope that this slide shows that we are wanting to collaborate. We want to be in your community. We want to create a nice subdivision where people can live. And we are going to be a collaborative partner into the future when the final development plan, which sets all the nitty-gritty, is going on. So I think we've demonstrated by this level of interaction and communication that we really want to make this a good plan. And I will also say, this is often the way it happens. You start with a site plan and you love it, but the community works on you, the staff and the town, they work on you. And our site plan today is much better as a result of all this input. And so we appreciate it. And here is the second cardinal sin I'm committing here, which is another slide with a lot of text on it. But again, I'm not going to read this to you. I just think it's important for us to take one step back and realize where we are in this process. Your town code calls for the preliminary development plan and then a final development plan. And so we are here still at the preliminary development plan stage. So the things that we're supposed to be reviewing and that the Planning Commission is supposed to be doing at this stage is looking to make sure that our proposal meets the criteria that you see on your screen there.
Ma'am, if I can interrupt you for a moment.
Yes,
I suggest you get to your plan and try not to educate the council.
apologies.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So our request is for a zone map change and also to reverse the Planning Commission's decision on the denying our preliminary development plan. The proposed use is a townhome for rent community. The site context is that you've got about 33 acres, gross acres, across two parcels. It's currently vacant north of Market Street and on Great Western Drive, the Great Western Drive alignment, and just south of Glassford Hills. The existing zoning is R1MH, single-family mobile home, manufactured, that's the 22.5 acres, and C2. We're proposing to change the zoning to RS, Residential and Services, PAD. We're surrounded by other RS PAD properties, some RCU, and some C2 PAD. And in response to some things that were said, is a gentleman's comment, which I understood, we don't think R1MH is a bad zoning category, but we think that this project is going to add housing options for Prescott Valley. The average home price here is $494,000. That's a $3,500 a month payment. That's $1,000 more than these for rent homes will command in the marketplace. So as Jess mentioned, the general plan is allowing of this use, and we're going to come back to we're going to be moving, if you rezone it to RSPAD, you'll be rezoning in conformance with your general plan. I want to talk about the units. We're looking at the latest site plan that we sent up before this afternoon shows 380 units, 188 two bedrooms and 192 three bedrooms, all for rent, and it's a gated residential development. The two units are Woodland, that's a 2-bedroom, 2 stories. That's about 1,200 square feet. We are going to add the 50 square feet of storage onto the garage. It will not subtract from the size of the garage for the parking space. So I don't know how to say that more facilely, just that there will be the 50 square feet added on. And this is the range water. 1,400 square feet-ish, and this will also get the same 50 square feet of storage. So to talk about the site plan, you see some of the details up there. We're going to have retaining walls at the max height of 20 feet. This density is 11.92 units per acre. And if we, the RS setbacks are that we don't have to have it. If we don't have to have any setback in the RS, sorry about that. The residential density allowed, if we rezone to RS, is 463 units. So that is 14.52 units per acre, dwelling units per acre. So we're proposing fewer units than what's allowed in the RS. The site plan shows 2 access points. The primary access is the gated entry at the future Jasper Parkway, and the secondary access is on Market Street. There are 760 parking spaces required, and we're providing 810, which is a 50-space surplus. We did move we heard from the last Planning Commission that there weren't enough visitor parking spaces and that they should be situated toward the south of the site. And so we added 10 visitor spaces. Landscaping, open space, and amenities. The total open space is 30%. We're also looking at trees and shrubs as required by the code. The amenities are spread throughout. There is no open space requirement for RS. However, we've exceeded the 10% required for public lands and interior landscaping. The bungalows just south of us also has a 30% total open space. We thought about increasing landscaping, increasing shrubs and trees, but we wanted to be good stewards of the water. You know, when you start adding in the shrubs and trees, then your water use goes up, and that is a very sensitive thing. More on open space and amenities. We're adjacent to Glassford Dells Regional Park. We are going to provide trailhead connectivity to support access from the public, but also from a private access point on the site. And I liked this map because it shows you the site in the context of the larger plans for the area. So again, speaking to pedestrian connectivity, we put sidewalks on both sides of the internal streets. That's a change from our original plan that had sidewalks on one side of the street in most places. Pedestrian access is provided through public sidewalks and paths, and there is going to be trail access. You know, we'll have to see at the final development plan whether it should be on the north or on the west, or maybe both. We'll have to see how that works out. Right now, it looks like the north will be the best for public access. That access will come for the public from Jasper Road to all the way up to the city parcel on the northeast of our property. Traffic impacts. Again, we heard a lot about this at our first meeting. So we provided some level of service recommendations for the more regional difficulties with traffic. We're going to do half-street improvements on Jasper Parkway and Market Street. That would include curb, gutter, and sidewalk as requested by the town. We did a traffic study which showed that under the current zoning, the trips would be 8,980, but under the projected proposal, the daily trips generated would be 2,884. So that's a 68% decrease in the traffic that would be generated if it was developed as mobile home park and C2, the way it is zoned right now. As Jessica mentioned, we had community outreach with no concerns, frankly. 2 individuals were residing in the county and 1 owner in Prescott Valley. That happened on March 2. We had 4 individuals and a very nice discussion. So I want to talk about the project highlights and benefits, and then I'm going to talk about the 3 issues that we've been working on in the past 2 or 3 days. So this is going to develop some vacant property, and it's going to be developed in harmony with the surrounding properties. If you recall the slide that we talked about, the densities on all around us are comparable to what we're proposing. It's a high-quality, nice project with nice materials, good architectural detail and variation, and it supports the development intent of your regional park area there. Contributes to the high quality of development along future Jasper Parkway. We're aware of the Jasper development up north of us, and we think it fits beautifully. It brings the zoning on the mobile home park parcel into conformance with the general plan. We are supporting community education with our voluntary $500 per unit contribution to the school district. We think that's important. We've responded to all the town's questions and concerns to date, and also which is a standard stipulation for multifamily, we'll have the 2% surcharge that will generate $270,000 a year for the town in revenues. So let's get to the recent issues. And the first thing I want to talk about, we've been working since we got our denial of our preliminary development plan and the recommendation of denial at the Planning Commission. And so the biggest concern we heard was, please reduce the density. So we did that. We took it down to 385, and now we have a plan that we shared this afternoon that shows 365 units. So now that's a total reduction of 20 units from what we started with. We will have now 79 parking spaces, visitor parking spaces off the street. And so that's 30 additional spaces from our last plan. And we've added 4 pocket parks in around the units and the rows of units. We have a plan here today. We did share it with the town, and we're willing to accept a stipulation for that number of units so that we can go forward to final development plan, or we can show it to you now, or you can give us a drop dead date when to turn it in. But we would just ask that you not let your decision wait to see this new plan, as we were responding to kind of last minute requests and feedback. So the next thing we heard about with urgency was retaining walls. And for that, I would really like to call up our main engineer, Greg Shaner. And he's going to talk to you about why the concern is this. There are 4 retaining walls there. Each of them are 20 feet or so high, adding up to a total of about 76 feet of retaining wall on that side of the development and along the northern part there. And we recognize that that has some visual impact that is maybe not attractive, but I will tell you, a lot of thought went into the design of this. And so Greg's going to describe to you why it's designed that way and what maybe we can do as an adjustment at the final development plan stage. Okay? So thank you.
Welcome, sir. All right. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm Gregory Shaner of Matrix Design Group. We're a consulting engineering firm and planning group. The site is difficult. Let's just call that what it is. It's got 136 feet of fall across the site, across 1,000 feet wide. So pretty substantial grade fall as we go from west to east.
Step closer to the mic.
Sure.
Please.
How's that? I usually never get asked to speak up because usually I'm too loud. So
Loud.
hey, I'm happy to be loud. I'll do that for you. So
So the site has some significant topography challenges. The 136 feet of fall from one side to the other creates some issues there. And so how do we come up with creative solutions to try to create an environment and a community that is livable, walkable, meets ADA requirements, which is a huge piece, has a lot of connectivity, but then also feathers out and can blend back into the surrounding property. This one for sure is difficult. If we take a simple like a cut fill like we would normally do, take 136 feet, divide it by 2, you get 70 feet on one side and 70 feet on the other. And so it's kind of what we're start dealing with. And then as we got into the design details of the project, we're really pinned at two entrance points, the one on Jasper and the one on Market Street. And so those really start setting our elevations for the property. We start working our way back, and I guess maybe that's the nice thing about engineering is it's just all a big math problem from here, right? Solving the puzzle. And so as we start working our grades back in, we meet city town requirements. So coming out of Jasper, we're at a maximum 8%, but when we get to our intersections, we flatten them all out so that they're less than 2% because we want to make sure that we have our ADA crossings for all of our pedestrian crossings for all the roads at the intersections. From there, we can kind of steepen our roads up, we steepen up, we flatten out. And that starts building what our community looks like internally. But what that also does is it starts pushing out the grades and it starts rippling outward. And that's why we have the walls on the west side. And then what you don't see on the east side is that we were able to really slope grade and not use as many walls to get down to Jasper Parkway. And so we tried the best that we could to bring in the topography and use topography where we can. Walls are a byproduct of the effort, I think. And so we didn't just start there, but as we worked the problem internally and started working our way out and tried to be cognizant of everything that the town wanted and what the developer is trying to do and what we're trying to do to create a community, we ended up with that wall system on the west. I think it's important to say that those walls that's why we have a maximum height on the walls at 20 feet. We do separate them out so that we can bench them, so that we get a tiered feel to it. Within those tiers, we can do landscaping. We worked with our landscape architects to make sure that we create enough space in between the walls so we can actually do smaller tree planting. I wouldn't say large tree plantings, but smaller tree plantings, so you get some vertical relief against those walls. And it gives us some variety in there that we can work with. Also, this being a PDP, I think that this is a starting point on the discussion on how this is going to look and feel as a whole. As we get into the details of it, we can be working with the town engineering staff and work with Boyd on, hey, what kind of grade can we get on this street here? Can I get a variance? Because if I can pick up a foot or pick up another foot, that's a foot I can take off of those walls. And so we'll start really fine tuning and really looking at some of those grades and those intersections and how we can maybe start reducing the wall size. But until we get into that point, until we get that opportunity to be there to deliver that, we're dealing with a generalization right now. I'm happy to answer any questions on the walls or anything that we're offering up, but everything I've said to you folks today, I've also talked to the town manager about, and so we're happy to adhere to that.
Thank you, sir. Ready for council comments?
No, I
Vice
just,
Mayor?
Sir, I have a question for you.
Yes, absolutely.
So I love what you said, by the way, because I have a big problem with that 80-foot wall.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to delete some of those units in the back instead of where they've deleted the proposed map, you know where I'm talking about, in that northwest area,
Mm-hmm.
and pulled that road back maybe, and would that help?
Yeah, so I think there's some things that can be optimized.
Okay.
And it's really an optimization effort. The way I look at it, so that very northwest corner is probably the greatest or the hardest struggle. That's where that city proper or town property is, and that's also where we get the biggest fall in the terrain right there. And so actually that's why that retaining wall we pulled away, so you have those big those two big triangles, was I tried to keep them away from the maximum amount of falls that was coming down the hill, because the farther we pushed into the hill, the worse it was getting. I think there's some opportunity where there's some green space in between those units, and we can see if we can shift that road away. And once we do that, we start creating distance away from those walls. And when we do that, we can use grade instead of walls to make up the elevation. I think that's an absolute optimization effort that we could be looking at in the final development plan.
So my hope is that we can pull the wall back even farther, maybe delete those units and even the road and pull it back even more.
Yeah, and I think that it's really a balance, right?
Right.
There's other pieces to it that also start playing into it. The elevation at Jasper and the elevation on Market, how we get from point A to point B and then also up into those roads plays it. So as we pull those roads farther in, we create shorter distances. The shorter distances work against us because now we can't gain as much elevation in the roadway.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's kind of it's how do we balance it? And that's what you're seeing here is we really did work hard with how the contours go through the site. We really looked at what we were going to do to try to minimize our impacts. The tiered wall system, I think, is the right answer if we're going to have to do a wall, so you don't get this sheer vertical feel to it. How we break it up with the landscaping, I think, is a wonderful way to do it. I think it just becomes a math problem at the point of, can we move that road in? What do we lose? What do we gain? And then what works best?
Well, you know what our desires are.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
thank you. For transparency purposes, I did talk to Mary Grace on the phone yesterday, so I need to let the public know that. I also would like to say that she just made a comment about trees and the importance of water. There is a way to still plant trees. I'm looking at the owner. So we don't want you to, there's xeriscape and ways to plant drought tolerant trees. So we still want landscaping. And just to clarify, sir, I appreciated your comments with regard to your daughter and son-in-law and their issues with regard to attainable housing. And trust me, we are working on that. We're working on it diligently. And we don't really have developers here at the time that build attainable housing, but we are going after them with a full court press. We've hired a housing consultant, and we will attract attainable housing developers to this area to start building attainable housing. So it is on our list. It is a very high priority. This is not an attainable project. I'm thrilled that you are participating in the 500 per unit per door for our school district. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think you're our first project. Is that correct, Gilbert?
Yes, first one going through the second total, but yes,
Yeah.
the first one through it.
So thank you very much. Our school districts are in desperate need, and 500 a door at about 360 units is $180,000, and that's going to go a long way for our school district. So thank you very much.
We're grateful for the opportunity to participate.
Yeah. Thank you too for hearing our Planning and Zoning Commission and making Jasper Parkway your primary entrance. I appreciate that. I think it's going to be difficult for people with 4 drivers in a 3-bedroom unit with 2 teenagers to park a car in two spaces. So I don't know what you're going to do about that. You don't have to answer me, but I think that's going to be a major issue. Anyway, Mary Grace's slides say you have 30% open space, and I have to call your bluff on that. I think you probably counted sidewalks on that, and we don't really count sidewalks for open space. But anyway, where it says potential trails, does that mean they're going to actually be trails, or that's just where trails could be?
The reason that says potential is because originally it was in either we would do it coming north-south or we do it going east to west.
Okay.
So those were the 2 potential locations of the trail connectivity to the town-owned parcel in the northwest.
Okay, great. I'm done for now.
Councilwoman Hepperly?
Could you address your water?
Yes. Yes, thank you. I did not have a slide for water, but we do have, we are not using the town's water. We heard very early on in some of our meetings that this kind of multifamily loophole in state law is not going to work here in Prescott Valley, and we're fine with that. And we were very happy to learn that Water Asset Management, WAM, has bought the town's effluent credits. And so we have a conversation going with them. We've agreed on how much water is probably going to be necessary, and they've agreed that that water will be available. They've told us it will be there, we have it, and we've agreed, there is a stipulation on the zoning, and that was what I wanted to say also in closing, is that we're okay with your stipulations. And there is a stipulation on the zoning that requires us to bring water at the time of approval of final development plan, and we are prepared to do that.
Okay, so, and what that means, just for everybody listening and watching, so you will have your WAM water credits by final development plan?
That's correct.
Great.
We will bring water to serve this community.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman?
I would like to speak with Greg, if I might.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome.
I would like to delve more into the retaining walls.
Okay.
So in your matrix report, page 17, you discuss under grading and drainage, a substantial cut bank will result along the western or the west boundary as part of this project. And that decorative, concrete, and landscaping treatments will be provided as part of the terracing to mitigate any visual impacts. And from what my understanding is, and from what my research was on reference a cut bank, this is has to do with curbing, which is continually undergoing erosion. Can you
Yeah,
maybe elaborate a little bit about this cut bank that you
sure. I think
referenced?
right. So I think the terminology used in the report was just it's just to say that there's going to be a cut condition. We used the word bank, but it was a cut condition. And then the walls are how we're mitigating it. And so making up the elevation difference. So it's not, it won't be an exposed earthen cut with undermining or anything like that. It's just a cut condition.
Because I know when we have our monsoons here, especially in the central part of town, the core part of town, we have some serious cut banks, so to speak.
No, these.
You know, that they're within the residential areas. I mean, the 3-4 feet tall, you know, where the water just erodes. And we have some serious problems with that.
Yes, ma'am.
And that, from what I understand here, they can be steep and unstable. And they, going downhill, they go faster, and those cut banks get deeper. And so when you mentioned cut bank, that, you know, perked my ears. And there was a comment also, because of the site slope, a significant amount of grading, cutting, and filling will be needed, requiring retaining walls throughout. And that the northwestern retaining walls would have a steep grade that might require units to be set back further from the rear surcharge. And what I understand from what surcharge load is on retaining walls is that it refers to the extra load that is placed on the soil surface in addition to the dead weight of the soil. So can you go into a little bit of depth as to your retaining walls? I know the height is could be seriously be a problem if it, you know, if we start to see this erosion from the cut banks and from this, and you can count on the water,
Yeah.
you know, from our heavy monsoon rains.
Absolutely.
And maybe a little bit about what materials you're going to be using. And you mentioned the gradient of being 8%.
Yes.
And possibly go into that a little bit.
Absolutely. A lot of technical questions in there, so I'll do my best to answer. And if I don't address it appropriately, I'm happy to expand on more. I think the important, one of the things on this site that I think I do really actually like about this is that the existing topography is so steep that we get a faster amount of runoff because of the existing grade. I think the average grade through there is almost 14%. And so you get a faster sheeting flow that comes off of it when you get your monsoon rains. With this development, how we're kind of flattening it out a little bit more and then also funneling in the drainage into the two detention ponds, we get a level of 48-hour detention that will help mitigate and calm the flows off the site before they discharge into their historic direction. So I think there's a good piece that happens just with development in general as we're looking at the site. The runoff from the walls, the retaining wall system that we're looking at, one of the ones that I use, particularly with walls of this size, is a Ready Rock system. And they're basically, I think of them as like large Legos. They're about 60, the base is 60 inches wide. They're about 3 feet or 60 inches deep, like 3 to 4 feet wide, and they come in, they place them in almost like blocks. They have really nice fronts and that you can treat, and you can do different staining and colorizations and materializations on them. But they come in, they're really super solid. And what I like about them is that we can dry stack, which means that we just fill the dirt behind them, we compact it. We don't have to have a lot of extra tensile grid and everything to support them, like you would an MSE wall, like you would see it like a smaller, like a little 5-foot wall that maybe you get the block from Lowe's, that kind of thing. You don't need the grid support for that because these are beefy enough that they're large enough to sustain that height and that soil pressure from the backside. We won't really see, I don't think, a critical runoff. At the topmost wall, usually what we will do, and this would be something we'll dive into, I think, a little bit further when we get into the final development plan. But historically, what I've done on my projects is we either do drainage, swale around, so that we try to capture water before it comes over the wall, which is obviously what we don't want because we're trying to take that offsite water before it comes onto the property. So we'll figure out a way to we'll swale around and mitigate it that way, and then bring it into our stormwater system. All the walls will have perforated drains, so if there's any hydrostatic pressure behind the walls, it'll all pick up and release the pressure off the walls that way too. Very secure, sound wall system. We've done lots of them at this height, and so I have utmost confidence in them. As for the materialization and the coloring, I think those are things that will be fleshed out as we get through the final development plan. It's not a rebarred concrete wall by any means, or a pour in place kind of thing. These are definitely architectural. They have a nice look to them, and like I said, they can be finished in just about any measure possible.
Thank you. One thing that we've been discussing is catching stormwater. And possibly that is something, I don't know if you've looked into that at all, but something that you could maybe partner with us as far as catching for the future.
Yeah, for like
catching the
reuse.
Yeah.
There's definitely, that dives into a whole nother world of water rights too. And so we always want to be careful, but we'd be happy to explore options with the town. And I don't know if you've all ever used Silva cells. I've used them extensively to help with root growth, and especially in arid climates. And so it's another way that we can kind of get water into the root systems. So, but there's lots of options out there. I could talk about that all day long. I don't want to bore you all.
Thank you very much, Greg. And I had one question for Mary. With reference to the trail, back to all of these 20-foot walls making, getting up to 70 feet, it looks like to me that the trail is on the back side of where these walls are. So the trail is basically, you're going to be above those walls.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Okay, Ivan, I got some questions for you. Okay, so, it was mentioned the 50 square foot storage areas. It sounds like the developer's willing to well, before I do that, I think you guys talked about at planning and zoning, there was an issue with the daycare and something else. Talk to me about that.
Yes, yes. In our
Planning and
project
zoning meeting.
narrative, thank you, project narrative, we had mentioned that we would allow that all uses in the RS district would be allowed. Those include home occupations and daycares. And the planning commission said, "Well, those aren't good uses for this area, for this kind of a development." And we said, "You're right." And we took them out. So they're not allowed. Anything that's not listed as allowed is not allowed.
So Ivan, do we need to put that in?
If that's going to be a condition of the zoning, yes.
It sounded like planning and zoning wanted to do it, but it didn't get put in here.
Okay.
So no home-based occupations is what I'm hearing. And you agreed to that at planning and zoning? Are you
Indeed,
okay
we
with that,
did.
Mr. Owner?
We are.
Okay.
yes.
So that will be number 20, I think. No home-based occupation. I don't know how we
Can I ask
police.
a question about that?
Yeah, I don't know how we police
I mean,
that.
what if somebody just works like from their home computer?
I don't, how would we police that?
We would have to say that basically that there would be no home occupations, and that'll be a challenge. We've never made that as a condition of any
It's on a
rezoning.
complaint
Yeah.
driven, yeah.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
I'd like to speak to that. What the concern, at least what I understood the concern at commission, was really around the use and the associated traffic coming onto the site where the parking and et cetera did not contemplate a daycare, the traffic, the parking. Most of our folks will likely need to do some sort of home office type work. So we would request that be an allowed use.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to let you guys do whatever you need to do in your CCNRs. We're not going to deal with that. So,
Perfect.
perfect. Okay, great. So never mind, Ivan.
Okay.
Okay, number one. Look, can we tag on to number one, Ivan, that the 50 square foot storage areas cannot be placed so as to remove parking area?
Yes.
Okay. And then number 5, I'd like to amend number 5 to read, "A public trail along the western and northern side of the subject property shall be installed and maintained by the property owner developer to access APN 103-09-009 owned by the town for public open space use and enjoyment subject to town standards." Which is similar, except I'm adding subject to town standards.
That can be done.
Is that right? Or should it be either or?
I would suggest it's either or.
Either or,
To your
okay.
point about the location of the north-south, I'll just explain a little bit, if you will. Because it's on top of a retaining wall and we'll have a fence along that retaining wall.
Okay.
And we have the other retaining wall of the apartments next to us, it creates the confined condition. And we have a fundamental safety concern about that condition and the length of it. So we just feel that and we'll do it collaboratively, but we feel like it's going to make sense to tie that in on the north side.
Okay, so that should say along the west or north side, right?
West or north.
Correct.
Okay.
Of the subject property, and then subject to town standards.
Okay.
And one thing, if I could, on that as well, is the second part of maintenance. So constructed by us, we would suggest that it's maintained by the town, specifically because it's ultimately going to be part of the park system. So we're happy to put it in, but we would request that the maintenance of that be part of the town's park maintenance.
Are we going to own it ultimately?
You will, correct.
So don't we usually maintain them?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, yes, we maintain any trails that are currently on Glasser Hill.
So I thought that was kind of odd when I read that. So what should it say?
So simply installed, take the word
They
maintained out.
install it to our standards and then we maintain it, so that needs to be cleaned up.
So we'll
Thank
simply
you.
remove the words "and maintain."
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, 12, that needs to go away because it's got some typos, and I would like to replace it with retaining walls shall be consistent with standard engineering codes and constructed to minimize height in conjunction with placement of units and soften appearance by use of such things as landscaping and recreation features.
Okay.
And I want particular focus for those 25 units to be taken out of that back area, and that that wall be pulled in as much as possible. And then 19 would be a new one saying all fees, including applicable development impact fees, shall be paid on a timely basis. And then I want to also highlight the last part, the last paragraph before section 3, where it says, in the event of noncompliance with any of the above conditions, a zoning designation for the described property shall revert from RSPAD back to the original designation of R1 MH and C2. And the timeline in this is number 6, necessary submittals for the initial FDP within the subject property shall be submitted no later than 1 calendar year after the effective date of this ordinance. And I did confirm with Mr. Legler today that if the conditions were not, and the final plan were not to our liking, that we could deny the final plan. And so that's my intention if the plan doesn't come in the way that we've discussed today.
I'd like to be heard, if I may, on the question of what was the last point you were making about
I'm ready to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
excuse me, can we speak to these stipulations? I don't have a list that's numbered that's what the vice mayor is using.
Then what we'll do is we'll make a motion from the dais with the council with the stipulations on how the council has just spoken.
In the packet, there's a draft ordinance that includes currently 18 conditions. And you had indicated that you were okay with those proposed conditions?
I am referring to the conditions in the
And those are the same?
staffing report.
Yeah, those are the same. And so simply, they're numbered 1 through 18, and you're hearing some proposed revisions to those as part of the motion.
Right, I understand that, but they're, in my copy, they're not numbered, and I think I was able to follow it, but, okay, my client's telling me now that we can do that.
Make sure you get a copy of it, ma'am. Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Okay. So I would like to make a motion. So a motion to approve the revised preliminary development plan, PDP 23-001, for the villas subject to the following conditions. Any final development plans approved based on PDP 23-001 shall result in no more than 360 units rather than the number shown. And the units shall be reconfigured so that the retaining walls shown to the northwest are reduced in number and/or height, subject to electronic vote.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Clerk, please call the vote.
I apologize, Mayor. Are we on 9D or 9E for that? That's the,
We'll go with 9D is what we're on. D as in David.
Right. 9D is actually the ZMC.
the ordinance.
Yeah, we were going to do the zoning first and then the PDP.
Okay, so motion to read ordinance number 2023-924 by title only on 2 separate occasions, then place the same on final passage by electronic vote.
I'll second.
And that's with those conditions you've described to me that will be modifying what is in the ordinance.
That was the 19 conditions.
Right.
Subject to the amendments of the 19 conditions.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the vote.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we're moving on to item 9E as in Edward, Appeal PDP 23-001. This is also a public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak on this portion of the public hearing? That being said, I'm going to close the public hearing. And is there anything to add to this?
And you've already indicated that your motion is to approve the PDP as it has been sent to you today as amended, and you're adding 2 conditions as part of that approval? Is that what I'm hearing?
Units and the retaining wall shown to the northwest reduced in the number and height. By electronic vote.
Mr. Leggo, are you good?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And we have a second?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Councilwoman.
Was that 350 units or 360?
6-0.
60? Okay, thank you.
We have a motion, and then I believe Councilwoman Hepperly has seconded it. I don't know if we're frozen or not, Clerk. Vice Mayor?
Motion.
There you go. Oh, there you go.
That passed unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, item 9C, Taxpayer Compliance Agreement with
Thank
Aldridge
you.
Consulting. Em, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. So this item before you is a consulting agreement with Aldridge Consulting LLC, who would handle some tax compliance for the town. It's an agreement for $9,900 for the year, but they guarantee to bring in at least that amount in transaction privilege tax revenue through audits. Any additional amounts that they bring in, they would get a portion of that as well. It is a year agreement, and with that, are there any questions related to that item?
Council, have you any questions from Ms. Pale on this? Pretty cut and dry. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve an agreement with Aldridge Consulting LLC for taxpayer compliance services in the amount of $9,900 plus 20% of back taxes collected by electronic vote.
Second.
Clerk, please call the vote.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, jumping around again, we're at 9A, which is the final town of Prescott Valley budget, fiscal year 2023-24, and this is a public hearing, which is open. Ma'am?
Yes, sir. There have not been any changes to the amount since the tentative approval back in May. And the only thing that has changed is we did add 3.5 FTE positions with no increase to the actual budget amount. There was some needs identified during the class and comp study, and we wanted to add those onto the salary schedule before it was permanent or final approval. And with that, that amount would come out of that $5 million that's allocated for the class and comp study. With that, there were no other changes. Are there any additional questions on the town budget?
Further questions? Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment on this item right now?
Mayor, the only thing I'll add is we do have a companion piece that'll be on next week's agenda, which is the actual class and comp authorization. So there'll be the budget approval, and then the final amount for the class and comp will be authorized by you next Thursday.
Excellent. I'll be closing the public hearing on this item. Council, will you have any questions for Ms. Pale? We have discussed this at length in the past at our study session. No further questions. I'll entertain a motion. Need a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign resolution number 2023-2024, adopting the final expenditure limitation and budget for Town of Prescott Valley for fiscal year 2023-24 by electronic vote.
Have a second?
I second it.
Clerk, please call the vote.
That passed unanimously.
I know we kind of, Mr. Legler, we had 9A, we opened up the public hearing. There was no action there, so that suffices for 9B,
Suffices,
correct?
yeah.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for item number 10, please. Adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
Clerk, please call the vote.
That passed unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks, everyone, for coming out and sticking around with us. We also have a CFD meeting after this if you just want to hang out longer, I guess.